Hey, Reverend Lance here, and I want to take a few minutes to address this topic of how to start a church. Um, I've looked at some of the other videos that are on here on YouTube, and it's interesting how folks will outline it, and it looks like it's very complicated. You need to do this and this and this and this, to start a church, right? And I think back of when the first church in a way started, and that's when Christ said to his disciples, drop your nets, let's go, let's rock and roll, and that was it. And the Christian church as we know it today started. And so it's when it comes to starting a church, it only has to be as complicated as you want to make it, and it doesn't need to be complicated. Typically what happens is that the Lord puts on your heart, you feel, that pressure from the Holy Spirit to move forward and to do more than just sit in the pew and raise your hands and worship, or to do more than just get on your knees and pray. You decide that you want to do what church is, and that is a type of leadership, So when you get that calling to provide leadership in Christly living, because that's what we're doing, then that's when you start to think, well, maybe I want to have a church, or you're in church and you're thinking, I can do it better than this. And I think that's a great reason to want to start a church. If you're in worshiping and you're engaged in their outreach, or they don't have outreach, or whatever's going on in church, because it's got to be more than just praising God, or learning Bible. It needs to be touching people's lives and reaching out to the community and other things, not just self, aggrandizement. And so when you're engaged in your church, oftentimes you're like, I would sure do this different. Like, I would not ask for so much money every single week, week after week, just asking for money, because that's what you get in some churches. Or I just don't want Bible thumping at me, telling me how to live my life and then telling me the way that I should interpret scripture, without going out onto the street and helping those who are hungry, who need fed, who need clothed, who need homes. So there's always reasons why you want to start a church, but usually it either comes from there's just been a pressure on you from the Holy Spirit, or you have decided that you can do church better than where you're going to church. Fair enough, right? So whatever the case may be, starting a church begins when you and one other person get together to worship or serve or learn, and you and one other person, and as soon as you take a leadership role in that just two people activity, you've got church. Because ideally, church is a place where there's leadership, there's Christian leadership taking place of some kind, okay? And so if you want to start a church and you feel you have that calling to start a church, I encourage you to go forward with it, because it won't be until you actually start to do it that you'll know whether you're reading your spirit right or not, or whether you're hearing God the way you think you want to be hearing him. So what you would do is, it's this simple to start a church. You don't need all these lists and business plans and not-for-profit. No, right? The first thing I would suggest that you do is go to getordained.com. Come on over to us. Getordained.com is the ministry of Street Bishops. Street Bishops International was started over 20 years ago to be supportive of individuals like yourself who were launching off to begin ministry. Because what we found over 20 years ago was that folks were saying to me, they were saying, look, you know a lot about business, you know a lot about church, you know a lot about people. Can you help us start a church? And so I started doing that. I stepped up to my leadership, and a church was born, Street Bishops Ministries. We used to be an international ministry. We still are. We just don't ordain internationally. After 9/11, we quit ordaining people outside the United States just to protect ourselves. So we ordain only people in the United States. But you go there, pay you 25 bucks, you get your certificate, your letters of ordination. But what you get, most important of all, is you get me. Because once you're ordained through our group, you have my personal cell phone number that you can call anytime you need me to say, Reverend Lance, this is what's going on. What do you think? Reverend Lance, I want to do XYZ. How do you think I should do that? Reverend Lance, we're looking at a building. This is a situation. Do you think it's a good move for us, right? So when you go to getordained.com, the address is up there, not .org, that's some other organization, but getordained.com, that's us. And you get ordination, you get my cell phone number. You're going to get a wedding handbook and you're going to get some other things, but most important is you get connected to me. And I'm going to help you start this church. And what I'm going to say to you is this to begin with. You only need you and one other person to start the church. Okay? And you just need to get together and whatever's on your heart. If you want to feed people on the street, if you want to do Bible ministry, no matter what you want to do, then you just go ahead and you begin doing that. But you only need you and one other person. And it can be you and one other person for 6 months, and that's fine. But what's going to happen is as soon as you begin either meeting like Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon or Wednesday afternoon or Tuesday noontime, whatever, when you tell other people about it, you're going to want to say, you know what, there's the two of us meeting. Would you like to come by and meet with us? We're going to be just praying and enjoying each other's company, and we're gonna do church together. You know, we're gonna open up our hymnals and we're gonna sing. You know, we're gonna sing a hymn, and it's fun kind of to sing the old ones, right, from last century and the century before. How great thou art, and some of those. When you're sitting just 1, 2, 3, or 5 of you, and you're singing the old hymns, it has got a wonderful spiritual flavor to it that I just love, right? You can lay hands on each other when you're not well or when you want to bless each other for whatever reason, and you can do church. Just takes 2 of you, and with you taking the leadership position, and you can declare, I want to start a church, and you guys are my new church. You one guy or gal, you're my new church, or you 3 or 5. And then you begin to meet, and I would suggest you all meet at least twice a week. Pick 2 different times during the week that you're going to want to meet. You're going to meet for about an hour. Now, I encourage you when you're starting your church, don't get wrapped in what you're going to call your church. Just say we're going to have church, right? Just do it. You don't have to have a name. You don't have to have a license, a business license. If you get your ordination, that's nice, because then, you're Reverend Paul Jones or whatever your name is, and you're having church, and you are the pastor of that church. And I'd encourage you, don't get wrapped up in the formalities of church. You don't need a bylaws yet. You don't need a board of directors. You don't need this committee and that committee. Just get a group of people together and start doing church. Now, as the leader, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have a plan for what you're going to do in that hour, hour and a half, 2 hours that you meet. You want to have an agenda of things you want to do. We're going to have an opening prayer. I would encourage you direct the church, let someone else do the opening prayer. Allow people in the group to do as much as you can. Who's going to lead singing today? Sarah, you want to lead? Okay, what do you have planned for us to sing today? What 2 hymns or whatever? But you're the one that's in charge of the church service, of the get together. You're in charge of it. You organized it, you're planning it, and then but you're going to let others take their particular roles. And then what you're going to want to do during each one, maybe at the beginning or at the end, you can say, just as I said to you all last week, I'd like us to be able to support our new little church here. So I'm not a big one for the Old Testament tithing and all that. I like more the New Testament gifts, right? So if you all feel supported here, I'd love for you to give something. So it might be $1, it might be $5. but it's good if everybody gives something. Doesn't matter what it is, but people getting into the habit, and you getting into the habit of asking people to support the church. Okay. Now that money may not be spent for 6 months because you don't have anything to spend it on, or you may spend it on buying some sandwiches and taking them to the folks that are, struggling on the street that you see, and they gather at certain places, and you can go by and take, you can go to McDonald's or Wendy's or somewhere and get 10 bags of food, with a burger and a drink or whatever. And, so you may spend your money that way. But however you do that, but begin just to have the habit of meeting with a few people and get into the habit, the process. Don't worry about the name. Don't worry about licenses, 501c3, buildings, deacons. No, there's a group and you're the leader. If they want to call you pastor, beautiful. If they want to call you brother or sister, fine. If they just want to call you by your name, but they understand that you're the leader of the group, that's cool too. Because as you're starting to church, the most important thing you're going to learn is how to be the leader. The spiritual leader, and the operational leader, right? You're the one that's making this thing happen, and you're the spiritual leader. It doesn't mean that your spiritual opinions are always the best. It doesn't mean that your interpretation of something is always the most correct. Don't get into that mess. Being a leader is shepherding the group. If someone is sick, your job is to call everybody and say, hey, we're going to meet over. You're going to be the one that's always going to be there if they're sick, and the others will be there when they can. When someone is having a problem at home with one of their teenagers, you're going to be the one to drive over and sit down and sit with them, not lecture them, not give them advice. You're going to sit and pray with them as they deal with their crises, with their child, their husband, their wife, their job, whatever. See, so that's how you start a church, is that you step up and you say, I'm going to take a leadership position. And you're going to find the first person to follow you, and then the second, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth. Do not measure your success by how many people are gathering each gathering. That's not how you measure success. In terms of starting a church, you're going to measure your success in how consistent you are. How consistent you are. Where you do your meetings every time. If you plan meetings for the next 3 months, then you're going to be at those meetings for the next 3 months. And things in your life aren't going to push you out of that. It's going to take precedence over everything. Everything, okay? Even when you don't feel like it, even when you feel sick, you show up. You may show up sick and tell everyone, I'm going to sit over here in the corner because I'm not feeling well. I don't want to affect you, but I'd like you all to worship together, and I'm going to sit back here and worship with you. But it's consistency. Being the leader, letting everyone know that you are the leader, you're the pastor of this church, okay? That's how you start a church. Once you get to the point where you need to do fundraising, find more space, appoint assistants to help you, or even decide on a name, be very careful what you name your church. Ugh, some people have the worst names ever. I grew up in a church called Rock Church. Beautiful name, Rock Church. It was just, on this rock, right? I mean, very simple, very simple. And so there's another church my mom used to go to, New Life. Isn't that a wonderful name, New Life? So there's some good names out there when it's time, but don't push the name thing. Just have a gathering. But when it comes time for you to have a name or insurance or a building or anything else, if you come to Get Ordained, I keep putting the wrong place, getordained.com, and get your ordination through Street Bishops, you will have my phone number, and you will always have I've known this for 40 years. You're going to have an experienced church leader who will help you make all those decisions as you plant and grow your church, okay? You don't need long lists of to-do things. You don't need anything other than just to get together with one person, then the second, then the third. Because in the United States of America, when you meet with a small group of people and you meet on a schedule, you are technically a church. If someone ever says, well, how do I know this church is legitimate or real or what? Because in the United States of America, we have the freedom to gather, and some states, through law and through statute, have sort of made an indication of what qualifies as a church, mostly states like Tennessee and some of the others. And that is having regular meetings and having an established belief that you're going by, an established dogma, right? And having consistent meetings. You could only have 3 people and you've got a church. So don't get caught up in, is this church legal? Or just do what Christ did. He told those guys, drop your nets and follow me. Ask one person, drop your net, come along with me. Then ask the second person, drop your net, come along with me. Then you have church. Then you have church. And I encourage you to do that. Now, if you have any questions about anything I've talked about here today, if you'd like to know more, please write to me at secretary@streetbishops.com, secretary@streetbishops.com. And if you'd like ordination so that you have your credentials as a pastor, then you can join our group. We have over 10,000 ministers in our group. We've been around for over 20 years, and you're going to get great leadership from me. I promise you that. To do that, just go to getordained.com. Put it in your browser bar, not .org, getordained.com, okay? And let's get you going. If it's on your heart to start a church, or if you're in your church and you're thinking, I can do this better, I can do it in a way that seems more peaceful in my heart, do it. There could never be too many churches. There could never be little cell groups. It's wonderful. People worshiping and sharing their life with others and how they're living like Christ is a wonderful thing. So start the church. You, one other person, you, 2 or 3 other people. Consistency over time. Don't measure by growth, measure by consistency. Be the leader. That's all it takes to start a church. No more, no less. That's it. Hope this has been a blessing to you. I'd like you to like this if you would, please. Share it with somebody or subscribe to our channel, because this will probably be posted both on Get Ordained YouTube channel and also on the Street Bishops YouTube channel, where there's plenty of good training over there. So go on over and get some training. So God bless you, and we'll see you again soon.